This is Grafted Together with ACSI Chief Ministry Officer Jerry Nelson.
Jesus said to be in the world, but not of the world. What does this mean? Does this mean that we exist in the world without an obligation to impact it? Jesus said that we are to be a city on a hill. Does this mean that we seek to be a light, but at a distance? Jesus said that in this world we will have tribulation, and the enemy himself seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. Does this mean that Christians should stand in opposition to the world? Well, Jesus said that this world will be destroyed and a new heaven and new earth will appear. Does this mean that we allow things to be as they are and make little to no attempt to address the issues? Jesus Christ burst on the scene proclaiming the kingdom of heaven is near. He taught his disciples the meaning of this through various parables. And in one of those parables, he describes the kingdom of heaven as yeast to a lump of dough. And though this yeast cannot be seen with the naked eye, once it is mixed in, it is working its way through the whole lump, influencing every part, causing it to rise. This little bit of active yeast has a great impact on the large lump of dough. Now, how one interprets this parable, I believe, depends on our view of the believer's relationship to the world, or to state it another way, our view of Christ and culture. Hi, my name is Jerry Nelson, and this is Grafted Together. And I want to remind you that spiritual formation matters. It is what makes Christian education Christian education. If you are not a part of the growing network of spiritual formation leaders who are gathering, you are really missing out. We had the privilege of having Dr. Annie Gallagher kick off our training on ACSI's newly released Spiritual Formation Journey Map, leading us to understand expected student outcomes. So coming up on November 18th, we will have Dr. Tim Van Solen from the Center for the Advancement of Christian Education at Dordt University, who will walk us through the next phase of our spiritual formation journey map in the area of assessments. So to register for the spiritual formation meeting, the network meeting, you can sign up at acsi.org/convene. That is acsi.org/convene, and look for the Spiritual Formation Network. So get registered today to connect with spiritual formation ambassadors, literally from around the world, and receive regular updates on upcoming training and networking opportunities. Again, that's acsi.org/convene. So one of our goals at ACSI is to highlight practitioners and schools that are developing innovative solutions to some of our most challenging issues of our day. So joining me today is Dan Stuart, who is the director of the Christian Leadership Program and Institute for Christ and Culture at the King's Academy in West Palm Beach, Florida. He has a diverse teaching history from the youth group to the college classroom. And during that time, his desires became clear. He wants to see students challenged through difficult questions and loved with the love of Christ. Welcome, Dan, and thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother. I've never actually heard my job description said out loud like that, so it terrifies me now that I hear it. Terrify the school too.
Well, Dan, I'm really excited. I got connected with your school it was a couple of years ago. Dr. Rains had told me about just the great work that you guys are doing there. I got connected with Dr. Gutierrez, and they both mentioned your name and says, man, you got to really connect with Dan. So I'm really excited to have you on and talk about the great work that you guys are doing. So, hey, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more? Tell us about your history. How did you come to be the director of this program?
Yeah, well, it isn't just me. I mean, it's a team, and I've been fortunate to have a team. So I just happen to be the one running the ball. But yeah, to be honest with you, the way it happened was kind of nonchalant. So we had an accreditation team visit, as all schools do. Mm-hmm. And my headmaster was asking me, just trying to get current on what we're doing on campus. And we were doing a lot of different things for our students. That kind of falls under the category of what we're talking about in podcasts like this. And problem was we didn't have an umbrella to put it all under. And so it was a little bit difficult. It was too ephemeral. And we needed to let the accrediting team know what we were doing. And we need to know what we were doing. And so that is literally where the origin of the Institute for Christ and Culture came from. But it's made up of things that we saw a need for all along. And I would say the way I fell into it was just seeing on campus, as there are on all campuses, just there's a need here and there's a need here. We need to do this here, and it eventually just splintered out into what we call the Institute today. So very organic. There was no plan. There was no big committee meeting approving all of the necessarily different things we were doing and then go. It was just something that happened very organically from me and a team of people who saw needs on campus and just put, tires to the track and just did it. And so I like people who just do things. It's one thing to have a good idea. There's plenty of idea people. They're called our students. Okay? They always have great ideas about everything we could be doing better. It's like, all right, like I like someone who just does it. So, and thankfully we've had a wonderful team of people here who just did awesome things on campus, and together those things collectively became called our Institute for Christ and Culture. Yeah.
Now, before we get into Institute for Christ and Culture, what's the relationship between that and the Christian leadership program? Is that the same thing? Is it different? Is it
So once I got tasked with the leadership program, there really wasn't much going on with it. So I just started doing things I thought there was a need for, and naturally, I wanted the leadership to be more college preparatory, not John Maxwell corporate.
I got you.
So we very much gave everything on our campus a very apologetic and evangelistic approach. And that's largely because of our anthropology here with our students, our demographic. So once I started doing things for that program, it got to the point where it was like, well, a lot of what we're doing here would be good for everybody.
Gotcha.
So let's just kind of open it up. And if we were going to do that, we'd have to call it something different. And that's the Institute for Christ and Culture. So our leadership program is really subsumed under the Institute for Christ and Culture. That's just the big umbrella for everything we're doing, because it's just easy to point at it.
So let's talk about the different you mentioned about it being uncoordinated parts. So what are the different parts that you put together underneath this umbrella of the Institute for Christ and Culture?
It's a lot. Maybe I'll just highlight a couple of things.
Yeah, sure.
One would be we take students to a local university, and we have them talk to that university's skeptical students, their non-believing faculty, or some guests that I bring in who are friends, who are maybe atheists. They're great friends. And we expose our own students with our guidance and chaperonage to a different worldview in that university context. And it's a great time. It's not for every school, and it certainly takes a lot of discretion. But we've been doing it for a few years, and it's been incredibly successful. And we have our biggest team of students going this year. And it's all of our students. The big worry is someone going to lose their faith under our watch? But all of our students walk away having their faith only stronger than when they entered the trip. And that's one of those things where, everything we do is very relevant to the concept of Christ and culture. We're about thinking and living our faith better at the intersection of those two things. And so we thought, well, we can just sit here and talk about that intersection, or we can just go to it. And we're very experiential in the way we try to teach our students here. It's not just the classroom. at some point we want to take their curiosity and actually bring it into the environment that they're going to be in a few months.
Mhm.
And we sort of call it inoculation. At least they're being inoculated with us there to help them, where in a few months we're not going to be there. So
And
that's a big thing we do here.
mhm. Now, for the students, is this something that the students sign up for with the
Yep.
program? Oh, okay.
Yep. Now you have students who will do it as part of the Christian leadership distinction.
Okay.
Okay, I know this
So
is, I'll
it's
be honest with you,
attached
I
to,
hardly understand it all, and I'm the one who's in charge of it all. But there are those who get special credit for doing that. But there are
uh-huh.
those who want to go. And that's what we found is it's nice because we
Mhm.
offer all of these distinctions for law and engineering and you name it, nursing.
Mhm.
Leadership is one of them. But we
Mhm.
didn't want to just hedge in those experiences for distinction students. We wanted the whole school to be able to benefit from what this program had to offer. And so this is a trip that someone who doesn't even care about the distinction just wants to go on.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. And so we just like to make sure they've at least had one apologetics class, or at
Yeah.
least they're in the midst of one. But so we don't just throw them out there without prepping
Mhm.
them. Another thing we
Gotcha.
do is that's why I'm kind of wearing the shirt today is we have me and another guy here on campus, our directors for William Lane Craig and
Mm.
his apologetics ministry. So we run a couple reasonable faith chapters here on this campus, and I think they're the organization's biggest chapters.
Mm.
We run for students and then one for the adults, and they're packed. And so we have students who come out. It's just a place to, again, a meeting place between Christ and culture where often when those two collide, you get lots of questions and you get lots of objections and you get lots of doubts. And we've created these spaces on campus where both students and faculty and adults and parents can come out and get their questions answered because they're interacting with culture and it's causing questions, and we just wanted to make sure we provided a place for them to be able to do that. Something as simple as that. Being a director is not all that simple, but
Yeah.
we just tied it to William Lane Craig because it gives it a sense of professionalism. But he's also
Yeah.
just wonderful to partner with. Um, but that's been incredibly successful too. That's just to
Mhm.
give two examples of different ways we're engaging with this intersection. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. So the Institute for Christ and Culture, it's not just for students, but it's something that's for your entire community,
Family.
as in
Yeah.
this extends beyond the school community itself.
It's students, it's teachers, it's administrators, it's parents. So our whole TKA family, our motto is we're equipping the TKA family for more meaningful engagement with culture. And really
Mhm.
all that means is more conscious engagement. You know,
Mhm.
the fact of the matter is every school as a whole is being discipled by culture. And this
Right.
isn't to say everything culture has to offer is bad.
Right. Right.
But for many people, that discipling is away from Christ. And
Mhm.
often it's happening at an unconscious level. And you and
Mhm.
I know that because we've been in the classroom with these students
Yeah.
and even with adults and listening to their answers and the way they kind of work through these sorts of things. And it is happening whether we like it or not. Just go to a
Mhm.
Bible class, once. Um, and we're just trying to make our whole campus more conscious of that phenomenon. That's it.
Mhm.
And we're doing it in a whole host of ways. You had mentioned the podcast before this
Mhm.
meeting started. And yeah, that is something we do. And that's sort of for our parents who can't get on campus and have these in
Yeah.
person conversations. And we don't have thousands of people viewing them. It was never meant that way. It's, maybe 300 or 400 people. They're just our parents, our teachers who just don't have the time. But um, on that podcast, we just look at a piece of culture and make ourselves more conscious of it because it is discipling us. I
Yeah.
liked the verses you were reading at the beginning of this meeting because um, I don't think there really is a way to remove ourselves from culture, especially today. And
Mm.
so um, we're being affected by it irregardless. So let's learn how to deal with it.
So I don't want to assume. So where did the name Christ and culture come from? I think I know, but I want you to explain where it came from and why that particular name.
Because my name's got rejected. That's the answer, right? Yeah. So because I'm going to create a name because I haven't always been in the youth group, but I do love doing inner city work and being with those kids, and that's always going to be part of my history. And so I'm always looking for a name that's just going to get the most people out.
Uh-huh.
So I just want them to hear the gospel. I'm a pragmatist at core.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there was a lot of debate about the name, but the most important thing about the name, in my opinion, is the and.
Hmm.
There's these models. Richard Niebuhr has put out a book called Christ. I think it is Christ in Culture, but I haven't read it for a long time. I just remember it was a yellow book that they made me read in college. And I thought that's the most neutral because we were real careful, and I'm real careful. We don't have a combative attitude toward culture. I
Hmm.
mean, we want to see at all points in time with every non-believer we engage, not just off campus, but on campus.
Hmm.
We're actually inviting an atheist friend of mine on campus to debate one of my Christian friends.
Hmm.
But it is a formal debate, but at the same time, what we're trying to illustrate is the and in between,
Hmm.
which is friendship. That these two people really disagree, but they're really good friends. And even in our disagreement, I can't help but see the image of God in the
Yeah.
non-believer I'm talking to. So
Hmm.
we believe in a kind of winsome, which is a very debated term, but I'm going
Yeah.
to use it because you know what? We're not the church here. We're a school and we have to be careful about our identity with the surrounding community. So winsome and gracious and just a posture of listening. And again, like I said, seeing the image of God in the other person. So it's not Christ against culture or
Hmm.
Christ above culture or
Hmm.
Christ or necessarily as if there's this dichotomy between the two. Um, but and
Yeah, culture with amongst believers, and again, a lot of it, as you know, it really it's influenced by your upbringing, your sociology. You know, some people view culture as a negative thing, almost how it's something to be escaped from.
yeah, yeah.
How are you defining culture at the school? Well, let's just answer the question. How are you defining that for your community?
Well, that's a really hard word to define. And I read a lot of books that just said the same thing. So I'm kind of a simple guy, kind of a blue collar guy from Philadelphia. So I would say I don't have a great definition. The culture is what we make of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, on a simple level, culture is what humans have done with the raw materials that God has created. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I think I share your sentiment. It's not all negative, and we're real careful about that because we firmly believe um, that culture making and participating in culture, but we have to be conscious when we do that. Our biggest concern is as we actually um, inevitably participate in culture, just making sure we're being cognizant of
Mm-hmm.
what it is we're participating in, because
Yeah.
it is shaping our beliefs, it's shaping our loves, it shapes our hoping trajectories, if I can put it that way, our sort of orientation.
Mm-hmm.
That's all happening, like you said, on a sociological, on a level that's just hard to Again, I can't even know myself well enough to know exactly how much it is probably shaping me. And so for us, it's just more about being conscious of the kinds of beliefs it's putting in here, the kinds of desires it's putting in here, the
Mhm.
kind of habits it's instilling in me. But we don't inherently see it as a negative thing. I don't have a better definition than that. You would have to give me one. So I'm
Well,
looking us younger guys are looking to you for these answers.
well, we probably read a lot of the same things, and I think I would say high marks for your definition. What we make of the raw materials of the world. I want to go back to something you said about the development of the Christian mind. In preparation for this, of just obviously with the title that you had, Christ and Culture. I knew there was some influence from Reinhold Niebuhr or R.H. Richard Niebuhr, I
Yeah,
believe. I'll always mix those two up.
yeah, we
But
just plagiarized them.
say it
Yeah,
again.
we just plagiarized them.
We just
Again, I'm not an idealist. I'm just going.
Well, one of the great theologians who wrote a lot about culture was John Stott. I think the last book that he published was in 2006. It's
Oh, was it
titled
that late? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Issues facing Christians today. And he spends about the first 80 pages actually answering the question. It's like, is Christian involvement necessary? So he asked that question. And he quotes Niebuhr. He cites his where he talks about Christ being the transformer of culture. Hence why I read the parable about the yeast and the lump. But here's one of the things that he notes, and I made my own note about it, about the importance of the development of the Christian mind. Um, and Stott makes the point that, if we are going to be effective in our engagement, that we have to be we have to make the development of the Christian mind priority. Now, it's interesting because he's talking about engagement, where a lot of times when we think about engagement, it's all, hands and feet of Jesus. But Stott says, no, we actually have to get the thoughts right so that we our thoughts are aligned with Scripture, and then from that, then we do the right things. We engage in the right way. So I want to kind of talk about the development of the Christian mind. You mentioned about apologetics. From your standpoint at TKA, again, I don't want to lead you into an answer, but I really want to kind of explore the positive effects that you've seen within the school as you've emphasized the development of thinking well as a Christian and how that has translated into the doing.
I would say, first off, I've never read that book, and I feel like I need to now. Um, so thank you for that. And
You got
I
some
would say
homework
that
there,
has,
Dan.
thanks. Our philosophy, to be honest with you, I guess I've just assumed it all along. I guess this is still part of being the teacher and not the administrator. The teachers just go, you know, and the administrator kind of steps back and sees the whole picture. In a way, you're making me do that in a way I haven't thought about before. But I would say that is our approach with most of what we're doing, and I would say it seems to necessarily need to be that way. As long as I think sometimes when people hear the mind, they think of it, well, it's just arguments and really syllogistic stuff, and you're just kind of viewing people like a big bobblehead. And we have hearts too, yes, but it's not like my emotions exist down here in this organ. The mind is
Mm.
very comprehensive. So it's not just when we hear apologetics, arguments, and logic. It's a whole host of other things. It's a very holistic exercise. Um, and I think we've lost that more recently. And so, yes, we do apologetics around here, and it is important. It's the first, for us, an important stepping stone that we want them to take before they actually graduate from here and become culture makers. But it's so much more than just having some of the right beliefs checked off. But our school has more of a transformationist model and mission statement. To be honest, I mean, we're graduating people who are going to some pretty top-notch schools, Ivy League schools, which just makes me feel great. I grew up in South Philadelphia, so I got to watch all these kids go to NYU, and I'm just like, come on. So, but they're going out, they're going to be great lawyers. Yeah. They're going to be great doctors. They're going to be great teachers. They're going to be great whatever. And if they don't get this right, then they're just going to make culture the way the rest of culture makes culture. And so I agree with that in a degree, as long as we have a holistic understanding of what we mean by the mind. That let's get this right first. Probably a model that has been offered by Dreyer in his Benedict option, but I find it incomplete, which is we need to retreat back into the monastery in light of culture's hostility, and rework on this, so that when culture is ready to listen to us again, we have something to offer it. And I think more along those lines, that's how we're thinking. We think a lot of what we're doing here in the Institute is, in a sense, it's not that we just completely avoid culture. This isn't a pure asceticism. But there is a sense of retreat in order to get this right, so that when we do go out into the world, we actually have something to offer it.
So it's retreat, not isolationism.
It's strategic.
Yeah, strategic retreat. I like that. That's a good one. Yeah.
But it's not complete isolationism. We are bringing them out in culture and bringing culture on campus. In ways that maybe are uncomfortable for other schools. I understand not everyone wants to bring an atheist on campus. It's funny how the students respond to that. Like a real live one?
A real live atheist.
I'm like, yeah, you guys need to have friends that aren't all Christians. That's hard. Let's start there.
Yeah, a real life atheist. One of my favorite books of the Bible is, and I've heard this from many people, is really the book of Colossians. Where Paul is dealing with. I mean, he didn't use this word, but he's dealing with a level of syncretism with the Colossian believers. It's like they have this belief over here, but they're kind of mixing it with something else. And I believe that Paul's advice that he really gives to taking captive every thought and philosophy. When I hear something like that, it's like, no, you have to engage even your own thoughts in a way that helps strengthen you. So when you engage that thought form again, you're able to respond. And so I think of it as a form of like spiritual inoculation. So kind of like what you would do with, it's what they do with vaccines. Vaccines are basically, shooting your body up with either a live virus or a dead virus. So that your body builds up the immunities itself, so that when you encounter, the actual virus itself, your body can kind of fend it off. And so when I hear you talking about bringing in atheists and bringing in folks who may not agree with the Christian faith, or maybe have a different view or some skewed view, you're preparing the kids to, because you're saying, hey, listen, you're gonna engage this in the world. Let's go ahead and inoculate you a little bit into this, so your body isn't shocked, if you will, when you encounter this in the world.
Yeah, you said it better than I could. But that's exactly what we're doing. It just takes different forms. And I guess, one of the things we're real careful of, because this might be something people are thinking of as they're listening to this, is, but how do you do that without it going crazy? And we, as leaders, have to be doing these things before we can ask our school families to do these things.
That's good.
So as we engage culture more, as I make more friends who are, I think of some of my friends, I have a friend who is a Sikh, which I'm still trying to figure out. Again, I'm from South Philadelphia, so it takes a little longer. Atheist friends, getting to know them, dialoguing with them, learning how to preserve the relationship
Yeah.
and not just there to win a debate. And all of that, once we embody it, I think then it's a lot easier to do it with our school family. And it's a lot less terrifying to invite it on campus because I'm not inviting some stranger in November on our campus. I'm inviting a good friend.
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to illustrate in front of people is you can still have these conversations without fighting.
Yeah.
And and just kind of show how the gospel makes that possible.
Yeah.
And so but we have to be doing it, so before there's even any planning for how we could do this or that, I just think it's, do we have people who are actually doing this, not just sitting in a room thinking about it, but doing it? And that's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard.
It is. It is.
That's why I have a team, because I don't do it well. So, but I have
Well,
people who
man,
do.
I know one quality you have is you're very self-aware, man. And you know what? I feel like that's half the battle of being useful for the Lord, man. Before I get you out of here, many of our leaders, one of the big reasons why we're creating this network is we want leaders such as yourself to be able to hear from each other because a lot of times when you are one of one in your role, it's different when you have several fifth grade teachers or you have several coaches or you have several, you know a lot of times you're the only one who's heading up a particular department. Many leaders want to know, like, what are you seeing? What trends are you seeing amongst students? What are you seeing that's positive? What are you seeing that kind of gives you some pause that we need to pay more attention to in our development of their love for Jesus Christ? What are you seeing?
Well, a number of things, but I would say I'm not looking at the statistics too much about the generations because I can only deal with who's in front of me. I'm
Mm,
not speaking to the church at large and the school at large. And so, but for what's in front of me, a positive is these kids still want to do this. They
mm,
still have these questions. They like being at the intersection and they still like dealing with their doubts and their questions and etc. So that's a great thing. Apologetics is not dying. The questions
mm,
might change, the answers might need to change, but it's still that question and answer syndrome is still as relevant today as it was when I started doing this back in the youth room years
mm,
ago. And so that's great to hear. This is still a generation, just in my experience and the places I've been, um, that's still, like you said, in quoting Paul in Colossians, um, it seems to me, believes that the mind is important to their Christian life.
mm,
Okay, that's crucial.
mhm,
As far as concerning trends, I don't know if I'm the right person for an answer there. Um, I will say something that concerns me regularly. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's just there's maybe some human psychology to it, just kind of makes it the way it is. That a lot of times, as we're trying to help our school family, any youth group, whatever your college classroom, more conscious of culture, it tends to become like this. Well, some non-believer says A, and then when they say that, I say B, and that
mm.
shuts them up and makes that okay for me. And then I keep moving on until I get someone else who presents a problem. That phenomenon is a real problem.
Yeah.
And I do think I've seen that more often. And I wonder if it's because things have gotten politicized more. And so I think that's concerning for me, is that it takes that sort of shape instead of an honest treatment of the objection or the doubt. you know, and
Mhm.
that's something I try to break down in my classroom every day and get them to understand. That's not just their question. That inevitably will be your doubt.
Mhm.
Um, that culture you will find yourself in is going to be strong enough, and it's going to put it in your heart, and you're going to feel it at its most intense white hot heat. You can't just dismiss these things
Mhm.
as easy as they say A, I say B, and I can move on.
Right, right.
Um, my biggest concern is getting them to take this stuff, the intersection of Christ and culture, seriously, because culture, it probably disciples our passions better than we do with our own students or even for ourselves. And so I think, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It's, again, not a thought I've thought out. It's just more of something I've noticed that is really concerning.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also maybe a little concerning to say, no, I really want you to feel this doubt in my classroom. But
Mhm.
like you said, it's inoculation.
Yeah.
Part of dealing with it for real now with us is that it can be dealt with for real now with us.
Yeah.
There's this pastor, his name's Frederick Buechner, and he has a quote that I really love. And he says, he's talking about doubts, and he says, they're the ants in the pants of faith. They keep it alive and moving. And I think it's important for our students to feel those questions, although maybe using the word doubt isn't comfortable for all of our listeners, but really feel them, not just see them as some obstacle independent of me over there that I just need to get over. I think that's concerning, because then the work we're doing is really superficial. We're not
Yeah.
getting deep enough to
Yeah.
really equip them for culture making or just
Yeah.
surviving at that intersection.
Mhm.
Just keep
You
it
know,
simple.
I really appreciate what you said, and just the heart behind the development of the Institute of Christ and Culture, and it reminds me of something that really has become the heartbeat of us at ACSI, and it's I believe it's Jeremiah 12:5. I'll correct it if it's not the correct verse, but basically the verse says, "Man, if you get tired running with footmen, man, how are you going to do running with the horses? It's like you're not going to be able to keep up." And I really think that one of the things that our Christian schools need to genuinely become are these training centers to really prepare our students. I mean, it's the greatest opportunity. I mean, how long do we have these kids for? We have them at the most malleable time and impressionable time of their life, where they're asking the most questions. They don't have the same level of pressures they will have as an adult, but yet we know they're filled with so much hope, and they want to engage the world. Why wouldn't we equip them as best as we possibly can to truly be able to run with those horses moving forward?
I like that. I mean, I have a lot of guys who I've brought in here who work with me, and they've done some great ministry outside of TKA. And they're like, dude, I do more ministry here in a day than I did in a month at where I was. So much opportunity here. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's there's so much potential. And I'm always just like, there's not enough time. I'm getting old. I'm not as relevant anymore. We got to move, because there is so much potential. You just
Yeah.
need the right team, because there is so much, and it's a team effort. So I'm just thankful for the people I've got helping me.
Any final word of encouragement to leaders such as yourself?
Um, I would say, as we've done this more, it can get frustrating. Um, and it's often because you don't see the immediate fruit, especially with older students. But as we have found, as students graduate and come back to us and have coffee with us, or whatever the case is, that you do make a difference. Um, it just takes some time when you're working with older students. It's easy to work with young students in the chapel, and get half of them to raise their hand to get saved for the 10th time. Okay. But when you know that, but when you're working with older students, it's just hard. And probably, especially with our students who I almost like to call, and it's not just TKA students, it would just be probably broadly kind of almost Christian. It's one thing to work with some kids that, I did in Philadelphia. It's like the contrast is strong and it's different. Here, I think the fruit seems to be more immediate there, but here it takes time and it's not always something you can see. And, but if you give it time, and especially as some of those kids come back from college and talk to you, and it can be a real blessing. So it's just be patient with it. That's probably the best advice I could give, because the immediate again, we're not in the place where we see the results.
Yeah.
So it's hard because you're not seeing necessarily how they're doing in that moment. And it would be nice to see it and then kind of go, wow, okay, they held on to their faith, and we don't always get that. And so we do this preparatory work and they're gone. And then you have a whole new set of students you got to worry about. You can't worry about the other sets of hundreds of kids that you've taught. So just be patient and let your students know they can always come back and talk to you and open that channel, because it's a channel for a continued relationship, but it's also a channel for a blessing too, because it's really confirmatory when you get a student who comes back and can share some great stories with you, and you still see that they're strong in their faith, and even if stronger than when they left. Yeah. And but we don't always get those things, and so patience with that, just recognizing where we are in their development. That would have been helpful, because I get frustrated with that.
Yeah. Great word. One plants, another waters, but God gives the growth.
Exactly.
And I know Paul didn't say this, but in his own time. Dan Stuart, Director of Christian Leadership Programs and the Institute for Christ and Culture at King's Academy in West Palm Beach. Dan, thank you so much for your insight.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your passion and your heart and your dedication.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Grafted Together is a presentation of the Association of Christian Schools International. Learn more about biblical worldview and spiritual formation at acsi.org/graftedtogether.